This is program 4 of the Always Articulate Attorney Interpersonal Communication Skills, and it's called Practice the Skill. Because in this program, you are going to learn how to practice these skills in informal, casual conversation. You're going to learn how to eliminate the thinking noises and the uptalk, even when speaking on the phone. And you're going to learn how to turn off your conversational cruise control and, when appropriate, control and vary your pace. So let's talk a bit about practice. You know, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes better. And you can practice being a more articulate attorney every time you open your mouth. You can decide that I am going to focus on my own, by myself, when I'm speaking alone, and I will say it aloud. So 2 examples of this kind of informal practice. Let's say you're driving to work and you know that that day you have to go and talk to a particular client or talk to a particular colleague, and you know that that topic is something that you want to be able to say well. Practice it alone, aloud, as you drive. Give yourself that assignment. Not to try to memorize it, so it's not like you're an actor trying to recite from memory, but rather to say, here's this complex or difficult topic, and I'm going to say it repeatedly, alone here in my car, as I say it out loud as I drive. And this is a difficult topic, so I need to do that a lot. That's my first suggestion. You're by yourself practicing. If you do that kind of practice, when you walk in and you think, gosh, you know, I said this 3, 4, 5, 10 times in my car, think of that increased confidence you will have when you actually then need to say it to the client or to the colleague. So that's one kind of practice alone. Another kind of practice is to say, I'm having lunch with my friend. There's no pressure on me to perform, but in this conversation, I am going to raise my awareness to all of these issues of speaking. How often am I gesturing? Oh, I'm gesturing again. You're going to raise your awareness to that. How often, as I'm talking, am I using that kind of thinking noise? So even in casual conversation with a friend, you can turn on that awareness to say, this is a time when there is no pressure on me, so I can begin to think about that. If you really want to be ready to say something well, at least be ready to say the beginning and the end. So a suggestion about the telephone. You've got to call up that client, you've got to call up that other attorney, and you need to say something. Before you pick up that phone and actually make the phone call, say to yourself, well, here's how I'd like to begin. I'm calling because we have a real problem that you and I need to discuss. Let me try that again. I'm calling because you and I have a real problem that we need to discuss. If you just get that kind of practice of the beginning going, you'll be ready to pick up that phone and dial it. And then to know what is the way you're going to close out that conversation. You know, what is that final sentence that you're going to say that is the way that you conclude? So, I will send you the documents, but I won't be able to do it until next Monday. So that's the ending of it. So if you've practiced how you're going to begin and how you're going to end, the middle will take care of itself. But it gives you a solid sense of, at least I know where I'm starting, and at least I know where I'm going in that kind of conversation. Now, here's my suggestion about conversational cruise control. Lots of lawyers talk fast, and lots of lawyers believe that that's just a given. Well, I talk fast, I've always talked fast. You don't need to be trapped by your conversational cruise control. Yes, there are times when you want to drive 65 miles an hour on a freeway as a driver, and there are times when you slow it way down. In the same way you can vary the speed with which you drive, you can vary the speed with which you talk. So your goal is to say, I've got to turn off that conversational cruise control. Sure, there are all sorts of things we say in life that aren't that important and aren't that complicated, and we can talk this quickly. But then there are times when you want to turn that off because 65 miles an hour is not appropriate. You're in what I call the school zone. You need to go 15 or 20 because you're needing to teach someone. You're needing to get them to understand what you're saying. So we're going to turn off that 65 miles an hour and we're going to go 10. You need to practice that. So here's how you're going to practice. You're going to practice setting the tempo. Think about how musicians playing together often count off and set the tempo before they begin. If it's some up-tempo, fast bluegrass experience, and a one, and a two, and a blah, 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 and off they go. If it's much slower, a sad blues number, the tempo is and a one, and a two. And that's the tempo that you need to set when you are speaking. Not that you're going to say everything at that tempo, but you need to set the tempo. And that's what you're going to do before you pick up the phone. I do this in my own work. When I get an inquiry from a client and I need to call them back and they don't know me, they've just heard my name, and I need to explain what I do, I will actually practice, because I wear this label of communication expert, so I feel a particular pressure to be the always articulate communication expert, to say before I pick up the phone, I'm going to practice the tempo at which I will explain what it is that I can do for your law firm. And think about how people who perform under pressure practice. Especially they practice the beginning. The golfer takes a practice swing before hitting a ball. The baseball player steps into the on-deck circle and practices swinging that bat before they step up to the plate to actually bat. People who want to perform at a high level practice how it is that they're going to begin. Well, you want to practice, in this case, setting that tempo. Now, let me focus on two things that you really want to eliminate, and that is the thinking noise, or and the uptalk of uncertainty. Here's how you want to do it, and I'll use this phone as an example. I think you want to have on your phone a reminder, a kind of icon that will remind you that, oh yeah, in this phone call I could think about eliminating the uptalk. So here's my suggestion. Note how to get rid of that uptalk, which is curling up, we're going to walk down the steps. So what if on your phone you just put a little post-it note that had a stair-step pattern, the kind of stair-step pattern that is by every stairwell in the building that you might be in at this very moment. And to say that stair-step pattern, perhaps with an arrow drawn pointing downward, is an icon that reminds you, oh, that's right. In this conversation, I could use that pattern. I could walk down the steps. Because if you're someone who spends a lot of time on the telephone, what a wonderful opportunity to practice getting rid of that uptalk. And that's the solution, to walk down the steps. You also want to eliminate thinking noises, and there's no better opportunity than when on the phone, when there's no one in the room with you, you're speaking on the phone, to first of all hear it. So that's your first assignment. How often, between phrases and sentences, is that noise slipping out? And maybe it's not or maybe it's like, or perhaps even you know. They're all thinking noises. You've got to get rid of them. But again, the fix is not saying to yourself, don't say or putting a post-it note on your phone that says, don't say The fix is to say, okay, if it's a thinking noise, I want to think in silence. So what if that was a post-it note on your phone? What if you had simply the word silence and maybe surrounded by what you can think of as a thought bubble in a cartoon, where there's a kind of cloud-like shape around the word silence with a couple of little circles that come off to the head of the speaker in a cartoon? Well, what if that icon, silence, surrounded by that thought bubble, was on your phone, and you picked up the phone and thought, oh, in this conversation, I could speak in phrases, but I could think in silence. Because that's the time to get rid of it. When you're in those casual conversational moments in a professional setting where you think, now's my moment to practice, because there's no real performance heat on me. There's no one evaluating my speaking skills but you. So that's what we're after, is to say, you now need to make practice something that you do. You do it when you're alone in your car, walking your dog, doing the dishes, and you're practicing, what is it that I want to say? You're practicing especially beginnings and endings. You're practicing saying, yeah, I know I'm a fast talker. I've always been a fast talker, but I have the ability to turn off that conversational cruise control. And to do that, I'm going to set a tempo, and that tempo will allow me to be that always articulate attorney. I'm going to eliminate those ums. I'm going to eliminate that uptalk, even when on the phone, so that I sound like I'm certain. So that's my final challenge to you, is you've now got to put some of these ideas into practice. Today, when you find yourself in conversation, Begin to raise your awareness to what it is that you do. And once you're aware, put the fix into place. And once you do that, you will be the always articulate attorney. And that's our goal. So to sum up what you've learned in this program, here's what you want to do. Talk to yourself and say, hear the habit that you're trying to break. Say that to yourself. And very often the fix for those habits is this. Talk to yourself and say, speak in phrases, think in silence, and walk down the steps. And finally, practice. Even before engaging in conversation, talk to yourself and say this, I'll be more confident if I say it out loud first before I have to say it to her. Say that. If you begin to incorporate practice into your conversational life, it will allow you to transform yourself into that wordsmith you know you can be, and you will become the always articulate attorney.